Welcome back to David Moore Engineering. Today we are going to take you down to the workshop and we're going to show you us starting Scott at Ratarossa's 308 cylinder heads. Now we're a little bit worried. Scott was very lucky with his cylinder block. If you haven't seen the video, go back and watch that. That passed all of the tests and everything was great. But Ricky struggled to get the heads off. There's a lot of corrosion there. We got some checks to run first. We need to take a look at getting the valve guides out and then we'll be on to pressure tests. Let's get you guys into the workshop and we'll show you all of that. All right, we've got a big one for you today. So we are here in the workshop and we've got Scott Ratarossa's 308 cylinder heads. So we're going to go through some initial checks with these. First things first, we want to check the cams turn on their own when torqued down. Just make sure all of the camshaft bores are all nice, straight and true. Just a quick check before we pull those apart. Then we're going to machine the valve guides in order to help us get them out. So we're going to try to drill them to sort of weaken them first and then try and tap them out. We might have to warm the heads up to assist with that, but we'll see how tight they feel. And then once again, like we said when we done his cylinder block, we're going to have to get these heads pressure tested, make sure there's no problems with those. So we're going to see what we can achieve today and see how far we get. First things first, we need to get a torque wrench, get set up. We'll get Ross to come round and show you some of the procedures on this, and we'll do a torque check on everything, check everything's spinning freely, make some notes of what we find, and then we're going to go from there. Right guys, so as you can see here, we're just going through getting these torqued up, and what we're going to do is just slowly but surely check each cap one at a time. So if we torque one cap, check she still turns, next cap. That way we can identify any problem per cap so that we sort of know where the problem is as we go through. So this cam is looking pretty good, which is nice. One of the things I want to point out, which I'm pretty sure Ross is going to be able to get on the camera, hopefully, down the side of Ferarri cylinder heads, they are numbered. So you can see just here where my thumb is, the number 6, and you also have the 6 on the cap. You can then see a 7 here. That might take a little minute to focus, and then also a 7 here on the cap. So, and Ferarri cylinder heads are always stamped that way. So now again we can move to the second cam. So that's it. And all we're doing is we're looking to make sure that no singular cap causes any problem. Now, one of the other things that you might find in this instance is, well, that cap probably needed a little pull down first, is if, for instance, it gets tighter and tighter as you work out from the middle of the cam, then that would suggest that the cylinder head is bent. So because obviously it tightens here, and then as you pull the cam into the bend, it will get tighter and tighter. See, that cam there is not particularly nice. Now, that must have been one of the caps that Ricky was mentioning, which is why that's not nice. So hopefully if we pull this cap off, because I need to check the other head as well, because I know Ricky did mention when he was here that some of these caps were not on the right way round. Whoa, she's nice and tight. Let me get in there. Go and kick that off. Right, so just after whipping that off, we have also gone through and checked the rest of the caps down the cylinder heads, and there was a couple that were not the right way round. I don't know if you guys have watched the video of when Ricky dropped this job off here. You can see that on his channel under RE Performance. He did mention about someone had been at these heads before because some of these caps weren't on the right way. So again, you can see now that's nice. If we go through, lovely, we're gonna, again, nice and good. So me and Ross are gonna go through, try to get all of these done. We'll get everything torqued up, show you, hopefully, all of these cams turning. Right, so again, we've got 2 good turning cams. So yeah, we'll get all of these torqued up, and then basically we can move on to the next step. So here's what we've got. We've now torqued up all 4 camshafts. You can see all 4 of these cams are turning rather freely, so that's a good sign for us. One of the big things that we're doing here, and what's important in what we do, is trying to take the time before you really get into the job to make sure that everything is actually usable, because we don't want to spend time and money and effort going into the job to then find problems later. So check the camshafts are going to be okay, there's no problems there. One of the things I do want to try and bring to your attention, which is something we're going to be looking for today, if you look in here, I'm not sure how well Ross is going to be able to get in there, but if you look down in these bolt holes at how crusty they are, again, if you'd tuned into Ricky's channel, I know that he struggled to get the heads off of these, where these have corroded to the studs. Now, sometimes we found pinholes going through to the coolant jacket, so we're going to have to check those properly on the pressure test. So, but now that we know the cams are all okay, what we can do is pull all of this back apart. We're going to get this up onto the Ferarri machine, drill the valve guides, and then start getting valve guides out. Then we're going to try and get the pressure test plates on, get her through the pressure tester, and go from there. Check this out. So what we're doing, we've got Scott cylinder head, first cylinder head up on the Ferarri machine. Things to think about whenever you're operating a Ferarri machine: your valves are always based from your camshafts. So in a second, if Ross can come here, you'll notice that we've got a little bar running through the camshaft housings onto the dowels, so that when this cylinder head is mounted, it is mounted true to that camshaft. Again, when you come to cutting valve seats, that's going to be important. Now, the Ferarri machine is self-centering, so we need to roughly set the angle by a sort of spirit bubble, and then the machine will locate itself. We'll go through a bit of that, but we're able to just roughly, there we go, just roughly line that up. Now, what we're going to be doing in this operation is we're going to be doing 2 things. One, if you tried to punch the valve guides out first, they can mushroom open and then it damages the bore coming through. So we want to be punching inside the valve guide so that it can't mushroom. And the other thing we want to do is remove some of the material to make the valve guide weaker, so it will come out easier. So we've got measured up an old 308 guide that we've got. We can then come in, centre up on the guides. We should be able to drill down the middle of the valve guide nicely, give ourselves somewhere to locate our tool onto, and then we'll be able to punch those out. Basically, what we've done, we've inserted the machine into the valve guide on a ground carbide pilot. Now, if Ross can zoom back for us, that whole head is floating When we come off of the foot pedal, the head stops floating, and what we do is we release these two switches. Now that makes a lighter floating head in here start floating, and a sphere start floating, and you'll be able to see here that inside there everything moves ever so slightly. Don't touch the handle, Ross, that's it. And basically when they stop moving and they've found their home, I'm able to lock those switches, and that will solidify the whole machine and lock the machine exactly where it is. So now that that's centered, we're able to put our drill in place and drill down the valve guide, knowing that we're in the middle of it, so that there's no problems of drilling through the side of the valve guide or anything like that. The machine is very good for exactly what it's designed to do, but it does have its limitations. But for drilling valve guides or machining valve seats, it's great. I'm sure you guys will get to see us machining valve seats at a later date in a different video. Right, so, that's what I've quick measure out. Oh, you're still going. So I don't really want to go much further than 30. So I reckon if I reset there. Now that we've finished drilling this first guide, this is going to be a difficult thing for us to do, but if Ross can get in there, you'll be able to see how thin the outside of the guide is here, and it's now given us a place for our punch to knock the valve guide through down here. So what that will allow us to do is to hit that guide, and because it's a soft material, it can't mushroom because you're inside the guide, and also you've taken a lot of the strength out of the valve guide to hopefully make it lighter to come out. For everyone at home that hasn't realised yet, obviously me and Ross have been really good friends for a very long time, and we sort of grew up together. So all of our first cars, that was all together, and we was just touching on that subject of your first car. And we were saying, like, we think we was like the last generation that had what you'd call proper cars. You know, I had a 93 Honda Civic that I spent loads of money fixing and modifying and putting stupid stuff on to make it go faster. Not that it was very fast, it was a little 1.5, but I thought it was fast at the time. But it was like the last of those cars that had a throttle cable, mechanical gear linkage. You know, you could actually drive it and have some real fun in it. And we were saying, like, we don't think kids nowadays actually get the luxury of that with electric handbrakes and fly-by-wire throttles and, you know, flappy paddle gearboxes on a 1.2 Polo. You know, it seems to have lost the real feel for everything. So, guys, in the comments, what was your first car? And would you change that for anything else? In reality, you know, do you love your first car as much as I love mine? Let us know. Now, for you guys at home that managed to notice, we had a bit of wind noise from the aircon unit blowing across us, hence we've put the sock on the microphone now. Now, this might be a bit difficult, but if I can get Ross to try his best to get in here, you'll be able to see how we have drilled down the middle of the valve guides, right? And that's basically removed the strength out of the valve guide. And then that should allow us to basically, carefully, you can see they're still tight, but what that's done is that's removed a lot of the strength from the valve guide, making it easier to get out, and it means we can hit the valve guide without it mushrooming over, because this material is quite soft, but we'll talk to you about that in a bit. You can also see, for whatever reason, these guides have been sealed into the cylinder head, which is not how they should be fitted, but we'll discuss that again in a moment. So if we get some more of these out, and then we can go through, we'll be able to go through a bit more of what we've found, because we've found a few bits in these that we need to talk to you guys about. I'm sure Scott's going to be interested to hear about this bit. Now this is the bit I want to talk to you guys about. So these guides, they're not hard to get out. It never looks good hitting something with a hammer on camera. But if you guys, can you guys see how they are two different colours? And Ricky had suspected that someone had been at these cylinder heads before. And what we can see is that only the exhaust guides in this cylinder head have been changed. So someone has pulled this engine apart and replaced one set of exhaust valve guides. That's not really the right practice at all, but what we do have to remember is 308s haven't always been worth lots of money. Even now, you could spend probably more than the car is worth restoring a 308. So, but these weren't worth the money they're worth now, not that long ago. So people were working on them and not doing things as nicely as you can do due to the value of the car. So we have to remember that in some of these things. So, like I said as well, these guides, they're not hard to get out. If we was tapping them and they really didn't feel like they was moving, then it's worth putting them in the oven to try and expand the cylinder head. With this sort of material, where it's copper-based, if it's like a Colsebro, the expansion rate is closer to steel, so warming the heads up helps those come out. These type of valve guides, where it's more like a bronze, their expansion rate is normally closer to aluminium, so it doesn't actually benefit you warming the cylinder head up to get them out. So you do have to think about that. If you have this style of bronze in cast iron heads, it will actually make the valve guide tighter warming it up, so then it's really not a good idea. Now, for you guys that haven't already, if I can ask you guys at home, if you can like and subscribe to the channel, it just helps us keep bringing you these videos. You know, for you guys that have been watching us for a long time, have been commenting on the videos, you'll see how much we try to take on board what you guys say and how your input really does affect us. You know, we try to read all of the comments. We really appreciate all of the feedback. So like and subscribe, guys. Just as we're progressing, I'm going to ask Ross, this is going to be difficult for us to get, but one of the checks we have to do is we have to try look in these bores. It's going to be difficult to get it with the light. I don't think we're going to be able to get that, are we? So they might just have to trust us at home. But basically, we will need to check all of the bores, and they're all okay, apart from this one here has some light scratches in. Now, I'm going to have to see. Yeah, this one just here has some light scratches in. I'm going to try play with the torch. There. That looks like you guys might just be able to see that. So what we need to do is we'll need to hone that valve guide bore ever so slightly to make sure those scratches are removed, because you need a good surface finish around the outside so that you don't get oil leak pass or pressure leak back up type thing. So there's no point in having a valve stem seal on the valve guide if the oil can leak down the side of the valve guide. So we'll need to clean that bore up. One of the things we need to do, not that interesting, but we're going to need to measure up the valve guide bores so that we can order the appropriate size valve guides. One thing for you guys to know is you do get oversized valve guides because you're stressing the casting when you fit a valve guide because it's in on an interference. So when you take old guides out, does not mean that standard guides can go straight back in, especially that one where we're going to have to do some work in the hull. That hull will get slightly bigger. So we'll need to order valve guides that we can then make fit correctly. Sometimes they need machining, sometimes they need polishing. So that is something for you guys to bear in mind. We're upstairs in the dirty room. I guess you guys haven't seen this room. There's not much to show you. We got the old sandblaster here, cover it up, try to keep it neat and tidy, and filthy dirty bench for doing dirty jobs. Now we're at the bit that, like we've said, we're worried about with Scott's Head. We have tried to show you already, but you'll see the amount of corrosion inside those holes through the stud holes. So what we need to do is we need to remove as much of that corrosion as we can before we pressure test it, in case that corrosion is going to stop the air leaking past, and then you get a dull pressure test, basically. So real simple, you know, it's nothing fancy here. Bit of emery on a stick, and it just allow it to flap round, remove that corrosion without really removing any material. This isn't a fancy process or anything like that. We're not remachining anything. Now, obviously, some health and safety for those eagle-eyed viewers at home that are conscious of it. We're going to have to turn the mic off, of course, because it's quite noisy with the extractor, me wearing a mask and stuff, but we'll show you a bit of how we're going to do this, try to speed through it for you guys back home. Now that we've got all of that done, hopefully Ross can come in and you'll be able to see, like, even at the back of these holes now, there's a lot less corrosion in there. So like we say, we wasn't trying to remachine these or anything. It was merely about getting that hard, sort of calcified corrosion out of there before we pressure test. So we're going to get these down into the workshop, show you how the pressure tester works for cylinder heads. I know you guys got to see it for his cylinder block before, but it works a bit different for cylinder heads. And hopefully Scott will be as lucky with these as he was with his cylinder block, but we will find out. Let's get you downstairs. So this little bit here feels a little bit weird because in the last scene we was upstairs and that was during Christmas, but since then we've had to wait for Scott to bring the inlet manifolds down so that we're able to get them pressure tested. So if you guys come in, why we needed Scott's manifolds is because you've got these holes with this valley here for the water-cooled inlet manifold. Obviously, we need to block that off completely. Now, we could make plates, but we're trying to keep the cost down for Scott on this job, and we've always had manifolds previously. So Scott was kind enough. He came in to see us, I think it was last week, so it was nice to meet him finally. He came down. So you can see over here, we've got this one set up, sort of set up. So we've got the manifold on with a nice rubber gasket round it, sealed up so that we're then able to sort of close off all of the water gallery holes and able to basically pressure test these like we've said so far. A little bit worried as to whether or not Scott's luck's going to run out because he's been lucky with a block and the corrosion in the heads normally leads to a problem. So if you guys have tuned into our first video, and if you haven't, probably should go back and check that out. This is how the pressure tester is designed to work traditionally. So you have the one big perspex and then you block off the holes with pads and then you use the clamps that come with the machine to sort of clamp all of that down. So it's a lot more of a sort of universal fit for doing cylinder heads. So we've got this one pretty much ready to go. We'll get this in, see if we can find any problems with it, and then we'll have to get the second one up. So let's get this in. So now that we're all clamped down, we are going to, so we're getting some leaks. So these obviously need clamping down until everything stops leaking, basically. And then we can get this fitted into the water. Oh, come on. You're probably going to hear a bit of a squeal in a minute because, we might be okay. That's sort of when you know you're getting close, when the rubber starts squealing. Okay. So if you stop hissing, let's go straight in. We don't hide anything here, so let's see what we get. So I'm semi-anticipating some of these rubber pads might leak on the initial. So we're just going to have to sort of see what we get and where we get it from. Looks like we're getting a couple of bubbles around. If we give a couple of these a little nip. So you see air coming out of the inlet manifold. So from over the top, the bits we're really looking for is we're going to be looking down the head stud holes where all of that corrosion was that you saw in the last scene we took out. We're looking to basically make sure that none of that corrosion has actually gone through to the water jacket. Again, Scott seems to be the luckiest person I know because he doesn't seem to have any problems here at first glance. Down the side of the block, all seems okay as far as castings are concerned. Again, we're just looking. Sometimes, see, I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this on the camera, but you can see a little bubble just there, but that seems to be trapped air that can't find its way out because the bubble is not getting bigger. If it was getting bigger, it means more air is being pushed in. That's actually just trapped air from sort of rotating the block, cylinder head over. So again, nothing to worry about. Round valve seats and everything else, we're not really seeing too many problems. Now, if we get a light, I don't know if that helps you guys at home to be able to see properly. But again, Scott really does seem to have gotten away with this one. I wonder if he sells his luck by the bottle. What we'll do, we're going to leave this one in here for sort of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, leave it to warm through properly. We'll give it one last check, and then we'll be able to swap them over and we'll check the second one. Okay, so we've left Scott's first cylinder head for a little while. Definitely no problems with this. Even the plugs going into the coolant jacket are absolutely fine. So what we can do, we can pull this one up. We'll get this off the machine, get the second one in, and we'll see what happens with that one. It's whether or not Scott's luck finally runs out, or whether or not he's going to be lucky to the very end and all the castings are going to be okay. So let's get this one off. So this is all a little bit odd for us, because what we've had to do for you guys, and we've been making some plans for those of you that are really starting to follow the channel now, we're trying to work out how we can bring you the good content, you know, that we want to, whilst obviously having Ross here filming. He's been great. But sort of me and Ross have decided what we're going to try to do is me and him will do a lot of filming, a lot of introductions and stuff like that. And then we're going to try to change the way we've been doing it a little bit by, you know, I think in the next few videos you'll probably meet Chris and Harry, so that we can show you those guys getting some work done, and then I can come in and try to explain what's going on, show you guys the detailed bits. So hopefully in the next sort of few weeks the videos will change slightly. We always want your input on, you know, what you guys think of that, whether or not you prefer it in the new format or whether or not the original videos were better. So we're going to expect to see some comments out of you guys on, you know, what your opinion on all of that is. So as you can see here, it's nice and simple for us. We just pull off the manifolds. Luckily they are interchangeable for this purpose anyway. So pull these off. There we go. And then move it over to the new cylinder head. There we go. And then we're almost ready to get the second one down. We'll see how this one pans out. Again, we've got Scott's second cylinder head up on here now, so we should be able to sort of go through and like with the first one, make sure it stops leaking air, make sure everything's nice and tight. And then we're going to show you guys this one going in for the very first time as well. Oh, come on. Oh. Let's get her in then. Right, let's get this one out of the way. At some point, I think we're going to actually have to do some videos outside of pressure testing. Come on, what have we got? Oh, right. So, see here, where is that coming from? That's coming from the bolt on the manifold, but obviously that is an open waterway. So we'll see if nipping that up helps. But we're not really concerned about that, because when it has a proper gasket on, I would like to think that shouldn't be a problem. Now, if you guys come here, you can see that's probably just, we did speak about how we'd reface this to make it flat, but you've probably just got a slight leak path across from here underneath that rubber gasket. Once both faces are machined and Ricky fits it with some new gaskets and they're sealed properly, that's not going to be a problem. But we do know why it's coming from there. That's obviously the most important bit. Now, as we look around again, let's see, what's that one? That's the air bubbles coming from that. So we can ignore that. Right, now if we have a look, what we're getting nothing on this outside edge of the casting. We don't seem to be getting anything down the sides. Again, it's the bolt holes that I'm particularly intrigued about. It's not uncommon for us to find problems there after having the situation that Ricky had trying to get the cylinder heads off. So, I think we might be okay on this one. Again, we're going to have to leave this cylinder head in there for a good 20 minutes. See what she's like at the end. So you can see here, that bolt hole that we was worried about, and we've sort of pointed out to you, you can see how evident it is when there is a leak. It's so easy to see on this machine. So I think Scott has been okay, but we're going to leave that 20 minutes and we'll come back to it again, and we'll see you in a sec. Okay, so I know Scott is going to be sat at home watching this, thanking his lucky stars, because as we thought, both of his cylinder heads are okay, which is nice. Again, you can see that bubble from that one stud, but that's going to be in our gasket, so that's not a problem. So we can get this out, get this finished, and start pressing on with everything else for the job. For you guys that are following us for Scott's job, I think our next video for him is probably going to be us getting into his crank and rods. So we've got quite a bit of work in that you guys will get to see. And for everybody else, I think me and Chris are going to be getting into the 812 engine and start building that bottom end. So there's plenty for you to see in the next few weeks on that. And we've also got a Ferarri 250 short wheelbase block going through the line hone. I think that might be our next video. So if you guys like and subscribe to the channel so that you can get the updates of our next coming videos, and we'll see you next week.